You there? Hey guys, we're going to get started here. Good morning, and thank you for taking time out of your day today to join us. We're Aries TCO, and this is a very exciting time for us as we start an educational webinar series that will teach our audience, you guys, about our groundbreaking technologies, everything that we have to offer. My name's Eddie Carter, and I'll be moderating the webinar today, and we'll be introducing our master programmer, who'll be giving us an overview of our ACE products today. I've gone ahead and muted everyone just to avoid background noises during the presentation. And what I'll do is I'll monitor questions that you guys type into the chat through our GoToMeeting platform. And then at the right time, I'll send it over to our presenter so that he can answer them live today. All right, without any further delay, let me get us started. So here's what we'll basically be covering today during our webinar. You'll get to know who our company is. You'll understand what this ACE technology we have built is all about. The inventor of ACE, our master programmer, will be going through a very high-level demonstration of the technology and how it fits into your industry or any other industry. And then we'll also talk about what's next in our webinar series so that you guys can learn along the way. So Aries TCO, we're a Florida-based company, and we were established in 2003. And we're a group of carefully picked programmers, data specialists, business analysts, and technologists. And each has over 18 years of experience, of industry experience. And now Payman Alaj, who's the inventor of ACE and master programmer, is now going to present to you what ACE is all about. And I'm going to go ahead and make Payman the presenter.
Thank you, Eddie. Good morning, and welcome to the ACE demo. Really, we appreciate you taking your time and coming in and taking a look at this. We really feel that the ACE technology is going to be of great benefit to you and your teams in any software development program that you have running or you may be thinking about running. So really quickly, to give you an overview of ACE and what ACE is, and where we're going to be going, let me give you a quick view here. We have essentially two kinds of ACEs right now that is available to everybody. We have a large enterprise version, which is essentially a desktop Windows application, and we have a team programmer version, which is probably going to take over everything, but it's a web-based version of ACE. We want to talk about how ACE fits into any kind of project before we kind of go into the screens, and I'll give you a quick overview of what ACE is. But ACE really works well when you're building a new system. And what I mean by a new system, we're talking about an entire solution. So not just one component or just one aspect of a project. It's the entire solution. It allows you to solution versus just making a component or generate code for a component. It helps really in taking existing systems and upgrading them or updating them because it helps you standardize code and standardize knowledge. it's really, really powerful in converting legacy systems over to more updated systems. In really basic terms, wherever you have large amounts of work that needs to be done, large amounts of coding that needs to be done, and it's complex and how it fits together and how it positions itself, ACE really shines. This is where ACE can eliminate a lot of the issues, a lot of the challenges that you face daily in a programming environment. So let's have a quick look at ACE. So this is the web portal version of ACE. As you can see, we talk about the different components of the ACE structure of the ACE project. We have data schemas, we have output structure, we have screens, we capture navigation settings, process, and our proprietary technology called A-Plates. Let me use the enterprise version too and introduce you to that. And the same thing applies here. In the enterprise version or the desktop version, we do the same thing. We're talking about capturing data definition. We're talking about capturing screen sequences. We're talking about capturing navigation, process, output, and A-Plates here. In this demonstration, we're not going to get too deep into every single one of these components, but I'm going to, at a high level, show you how you go from a solution or a solution request to an actual end product of what ACE produces. So in any solution, we start information. ACE is designed to help projects that are information-based or information-first. And what that means is that there's some underlying information component to the entire solution, such as is there a database? Is there any kind of structure that needs to be then derived and put into code and screen sequences? So in that, ACE has the ability to capture, using different utilities, the data schema that is either designed outside of ACE, so I can connect to any SQL server or any kind of data set and glean from that or reverse engineer the data structure, or I can build that data structure right out of ACE. So one of the key components, one of the things that everybody needs to understand with ACE, ACE is essentially the beginning of any ACE project is the capture of your vision, the capture of your requirements is part of the process. And it's not in the traditional sense of capturing requirements. What this means is that we want to capture the information, we want to capture all the things that make up your solution, and then we're going to use all that data in combination to then generate the end solution in code. So one of the first pieces that we want to talk about is capturing your data. What's the data schema? What's the data structure for your solution? So in this case, we're typical to most data modeling systems. We can create tables or we define tables. But in ACE, if you notice some of these key fields, such as friendly name. So friendly name allows me to standardize when I'm solutioning this data schema, the name that I want for the user to see for this data node or this data component. I can define all the different key components, much like a data schema structure, but it goes a little bit further where I'm defining also how is this information going to be used in list values, how is this information going to be used in different screen sequences. And you'll notice as we go into the different components, and we're going to dig deeper in subsequent webinars where we're going to go very deep into the functionality and all these different screens that you see in front of you. But for this purpose of this overview, you can see quickly that ACE is capturing a lot more about this data node and this data schema than the typical data modeling tools. It's actually asking the user to define how is this information going to be used in any interaction with a user or a user interface. So to help ACE, it asks questions like, what's the data type? So that's typical. But it also asks, is this going to be used in the visible UI? Is it searchable? Will it be used in a list view or in a grid sequence? What kind of UI control do you want to use or standardize for this? And then it also allows you to create alternate versions of it so that you can say for this type of data schema, such as OLEDB, it's using the number but I want to also provide for alternate values, such as for different, for MS SQL, I may want to use a decimal, or I want to use different components for this. So you can see that in the ACE tool, you're capturing a lot of information. It's more than just sitting there putting in some settings to generate code. It's actually asking you what's your end solution going to look like and how is it going to be used. We further then go into a structure where we define views for the information. And that, in this case, we're saying, okay, it's very similar to creating data views, combining multiple fields from multiple tables. You, in ACE, can actually define that here and say, here's how I want this information to be represented when I want to see the domain view in this case, right? So it talks about how you're going to combine your different settings, your different tables and your fields and columns, and combine them into something that is legible or understandable to your user. So then we can define our screens. So when we define our screens, we can say, taking the combination of our tables and our views, I want to use these to create screens. Now, this is not actually coding a screen. We're just defining for ACE how do we want the screen to be represented. Then we can create navigation. So in navigation, we're saying, okay, so this is how I want to move through my application, whatever that application is. So you can create many different kinds of navigation settings for different kinds of applications. And then we can tie all of that together into a process where we say, okay, for registration, these are the screen sequences, this is the navigations I want to use, and these are the data nodes or data components. Next, we'll go into output folders. And what output folders represent for ACE is, how do you want me to create your end solution, the code that you're going to use in your end application, and where do you want me to place this? And this is more for organizational than anything else. So you may have output folders like what we have, such as data definitions, data interactions. And this is mostly our structure, the ARIES structure for creating code. So in this case, we're talking about the different definitions and interactions that are going to be created for .NET. But I've organized all our SQL statements for creating a table that represents this in SQL, this data structure. And then I have a structure, folder structure for iOS. So all the different files that I'm going to be creating for the iOS platform, I can organize it there. And then the same thing for Android. So you can see that in ACE, it's not specific to any language, it's more global. So your entire solution can be captured here, and then you can start placing all of this code into an organized output. Finally, the magic in ACE, the A plate. So the A plate is where all of this information that we captured above, where we standardized our entire solution, is captured, and then it produces the output that the different departments or different solution components will require. Here's in this code, we're representing C# code. And what we're doing is we have a basic structure for the C# code, and we have it written out here similar to what we want, right? But there's a couple of key components in this A plate. There's specific ACE code or ACE syntax that can be used. So we have an embedded scripting engine or a scripting language that we use that, again, as part of the training, we kind of transfer that knowledge over to you. And then you can use that information and embed in your standard code this intelligence. This intelligence then allows you to create code specific to the settings that we talked about above, and to create code that's specific to your end result. So in this case, if I wanted to create, it's a C#, it's a C# code base. It's defined for MVC Razor. So in the preview, you can see ACE generates all this code for me, but it's specific to this one table structure or this definition table domain, right? So this is a preview, so it's using the first table inside the domain, inside my table structure. And you can see everything is now defined to the domain table. It's got fields that are specific to the domain. It's not generic code. There's settings that we put in there. You can see this more readily when you talk about creating views that are screens for users to use, when you talk about creating HTML or even iOS or any kind of other platform view that you want to create. In this case, ACE can define whether a field is visible or not. It can show all the different components. You can see how I'd use my settings to create list views or tables here specific to those fields, not just printing them out generically like most code generators do. Let me pause for a second and see if we have any questions. Well, let's ask if anybody has any questions. We can go in deeper into any one specific, or we can continue the overview. So it looks like somebody's asking what type of database files are able to be imported into ACE. Actually, almost any current RDBMS. So we support from Access, which is the OLEDB, SQL Server, MySQL, Oracle. We can convert XML files. We can even do the Salesforce, so any kind of XML definition file, CSV files that are comma or tab delimited. Does that answer your question? Any other questions that we want to address?
No, Payman, there's no more questions right now, but I'll keep an eye out for them.
Okay, wonderful. So this is again a very short. This presentation serves as a quick high-level overview of ACE, and we're going to dig really much deeper in the subsequent webinars, going into a great amount of detail, because all of these components that I quickly in the past like 10 seconds here I went through have a lot of content in them, so we can spend hours going into much deeper, especially in the data definition and also the templates. I want to talk about how ACE really, what is the output, what's the end result of ACE. So in ACE, when we output code, it is actually code. It's very similar to a code generator that we output this code into. But the thing about ACE is that because it's using your methodology, your syntax, your way of generating code, and also our intelligence, we can create code in almost any language. So if you have PeopleSoft, you need Visual Studio, if you have SAP, Informatica, if you're trying to create ETL, the power of ACE is that it gives you output the way you want it, the way you need it, and the way you would type it for your specific solution. And I hope everybody can see the power of that. So if you consider what's out in the market as far as code generators, you get generic code. And most programmers, if you ask any programmer, I'm sure if we have some programmers in our audience, will say that they resist using code generators unless it's absolutely necessary, because they spend more time trying to fix the code. So if you consider in our solution, in our way of doing things, because we capture the information structure, or how you're going to be building your solution in ACE, we capture all of the requirements, all the things that a general programmer would consider when they're sitting in front of the computer to type out the code for a solution. ACE takes away that grunt work. So what the end benefit of all that is that with ACE, as a programmer, I can quickly go through all of the minutia of generating large amounts of code that I, at times, may have not the time to do. So I have to kind of quickly get through it as quickly as possible. At other times, I don't have enough time to experiment with different structure. So with ACE, I can get through all of that very quickly. I can create code that's very robust, very powerful, and error resistant, higher quality and easier to maintain in longer term, and I can focus more on the user's needs for the end solution. The combination of these aspects in ACE, the data nodes, the navigation, the data views, the screens, navigation, and process, and ultimately the A plates that we use to bring those things together is what makes ACE so special. In our day-to-day usage in Aries, we've used ACE across all our projects. Pretty much everything that we do in Aries starts in ACE. Then you can see these templates that we have that I'm illustrating here are templates that we've been working on and evolving and updating for years. So with a click, I can go from .NET Core Foundation, Objective-C for iOS, to Android, to back to .NET, and so on and so forth. Now, the power of this is that when these templates are created, I may not know that language. I may have a specialist come in and help me develop this template, and who's really great at that one particular discipline, such as SQL Server or Objective-C, and they can help me develop that template. But once they do that, I can then, as an individual, without that person's assistance for every single project that I need to use Objective-C libraries, I can create that code that they would create for me. So I can capture that intelligence of that individual, of that discipline, and help them get to a point where when they come and pay attention to the Objective-C or the iOS project, it's already pretty much done. All they have to do is tweak it, make sure that it's clean, and we're done. I think somebody asked another question. Let me pause here. So can we share these, I think the question is asking, can we share these templates for others to use in their projects when they sign up? The short answer is yes. The long answer is, would you want to? So one of the powers of this is that we can take and create these templates with you, or you can use ours. Eddie, maybe you want to unmute the person and have the question as a more of a discussion just to make sure I'm answering it properly.
Well, I was typing on the chat box with them, so I understand what they're asking. The templates that you're showing, they want to know how much of this do they need to recreate on their own, in their own style, or does ACE, the system, come with these templates for them to use out of the box?
Okay, I understand now. So the answer is no, these templates don't come out of the box in your instance of ACE. You build these templates specific to your shop. So every development or developer has their own style, their own flavor of how they like structure for this code, and that's really where the power of ACE comes in. It codes the way you want to code. Now, having said that, if you like us to either help you in creating those templates so we can accelerate the process, so it takes a short amount of time, or if you find value in our code structure, in our way of doing things, then we're happy to share these templates with you. But ACE does not, out of the box, come with prefab templates. Does that answer the question?
Yes, it does. Thank
you. So getting back to this, once you understand what ACE will produce for you, you can start seeing the power, because now I'm not only creating code for an app, I'm not just creating a code for web, I'm creating code for my entire solution at once. And you can see when we go to creating code, it's very quick. For example, I'm just doing a quick preview here. Takes a second to build, but literally this code that I'm showing you here would have taken at least 2 or 3 hours to generate per table or per data node, right? So if you can see how much code in our templates exists to, and this is really so that I can kind of case this code that you're looking. Maybe not everybody's technical here, This code is a data node, or data definition or representation for code of a data node. So you can see our structure is fairly robust. We're defining fields, we're defining data types, we're defining how you can manipulate each record or each column inside this data node. There's a lot of error checking, there's a lot of standardization in index, so that when you go to actually use this data class in your application, this is all C#, by the way, it's very standardized. It eliminates any kind of errors that a programmer could introduce by doing bad conversions of fields or values. It helps create a consistent result in add, delete, update, all the CRUD functions. But you can see this amount of code, most programmers wouldn't want to type out. They would resist doing this. They would try to use any kind of a framework, or they would try and use something else. The beauty of ACE, it allows us to create our own, from the ground up, structure. So continuing with to the final aspects of this, and just to understand, we're going to have more webinars coming where we're going to dig very deep into how do you build templates, building templates from the ground up so you can see the life cycle of creating templates, going through and importing data into ACE. We wanted to use this first webinar more as an experiment to kind of kick the tires and make sure that we start getting better at doing these, and also to just give you an overview what to expect with ACE. Key benefits at the end result for ACE are the standardization. So what that means is that my code is always going to be consistent. Whenever I generate my data layers, my data definitions, my CRUD operations, my SQL statements, all of those things, I'm not going to have typos in it. I'm not going to have errors in judgment and where I've taken one data type and converted it to the other one. I can create code consistent to code that has been tested and debugged. In parallel to that, or accompanying to that, is the repeatability of being able to do that. So now every single project inherits all of the quality, all the other work that I've done in all my other projects. Every time I do this, I get better. And my new projects inherit all that work to become as good as that, right? It reduces the time. So now what would have taken me as an illustration in what we're showing you in here, in this code, generating all that code may have taken me 6 or 7 hours if I wanted to sit there and type all of this out, right? But this template does it in seconds, and oh, by the way, it does it for all of these tables up here. So imagine putting 2 or 3 hours for each one of these, the amount of code errors that would have been produced if I'm typing this out manually. So it's generating code against all of this stuff specific to my flavor, my way of doing things, and it's doing it in seconds versus doing it in days and weeks. So right here, just in one component, one aspect of my solution, I just reduced dramatically the time to deliver code. Now imagine doing this for all of these other components here that make up my solution. So really what we found is that the ratio of time in ACE versus savings in real world projects, it's a 1 to 16. So for every hour you spend in ACE building and fine-tuning your templates and your settings, you save about 16 hours in real project work. And this is a ratio that we've been testing. It actually can be much higher than that, but we've been testing it over now about 7-8 years worth of projects that we've been doing. The increase in quality as a result of all the above, right? You get into a situation where the quality of your code or your solution every single time just gets better and better. Imagine, the more you do something, the better you get at it, type of thing. And this is just inheriting all the work that you do, is inheriting all the quality and all the benefits of that. And really, this is for our purposes for this webinar, that's essentially what we wanted to cover and present to you guys. Looks like there's another question. Let me answer that. Will ACE automatically fix errors that it has found, or will it alert the developer? So that's an interesting question. So what will happen is when you create code here, so if you do something wrong here, yes, in this preview screen, and the purpose of the preview screen is to call out code errors, right? As much as ACE can detect errors, it'll illustrate and give you, this one doesn't have any errors, but it'll give you errors like syntax errors. When you take this code and put it into any IDE, for example, when we put this code into Visual Studio and compile it, in Visual Studio, we'll get any kind of syntax errors or structure errors or data conversion errors. So in the compiler there, we will get errors. Finally, when we actually go to run it and run our tests against the code, we'll see those. So what will happen is, in that process, as we find those errors and we come back to the template and update the template and adjust the template so that it accommodates those fixes, now you have a better template. So that means the next time you run this template against any other data set, as you can see, I can change the data set and I can have an infinite number of data sets associated with this. I won't have to go through that process again. Hopefully, does that answer the question, Eddie?
Yes, it seems like it did. Thank you.
Oh. So I'm going to turn it back to you, Eddie, to complete the webinar, and we can close out at this point. That's pretty much, unless there's more questions.
I'll keep an eye out, but yeah, you go ahead and make me the presenter. I will go ahead and close it out and show everybody how to stay in touch with us. So thank you very much, Payman, for showing us ACE and answering those questions in detail. We know you can go further into explaining everything, but again, this is just a rough overview of ACE, and we'll continue to go more in depth to learn the different areas of ACE, and eventually showing how you can build a solution from soup to nuts, from start to finish. So we ask you to stay tuned, look out for new webinars and educational series, and that leads me to how to stay in touch. Send us your contact info and we'll keep you updated on these webinars and other content about ACE and Aries products. Just email us at sales@ariestco. And with that, we'll also share exclusive special offers with those who attend our webinars as well. So like we said, stay tuned. I don't see any other questions come up, but again, you can email us and we'll see you in the next webinar. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you. Goodbye.